Okay, we're live. Good evening. I would like to call to order the June 7, 2021 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all board members are present in person. On March 1, all school districts began to hold in-person public board meetings. Attendees must pre-register to attend either a board meeting, a study session, or a special board meeting. Due to limited seating capacity, registrations are on a first-come, first-served basis and accepted until 1 p.m. on the date of the meeting. If you would like to attend a meeting, you can email Diane Jenkins at djenkins@lwsd.org, and she will confirm your attendance. All attendees are required to wear a face mask and maintain 6 feet of physical distance at all times. Upon arriving at the Resource Center, the public will be required to follow the check-in and follow the attestation process. Board meetings, study sessions, and special board meetings will continue to be live streamed and viewable on the district's website. If you are unable to live stream the meeting, you can listen by calling 425-936-2813 and entering conference ID 37127. I will now entertain a motion to approve the June 7, 2021 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Bleasner and seconded by Director Stewart that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed, hearing none, the motion carries. Tonight, we first have recognitions for the PTSA Scholarship Awards. Dr. Holman, will you please get us started?
As the board knows, our recognition program has been put on a bit of a pause over the last year, and so the host school program and other recognitions that we've done, we've out of the business, and we've had many remote meetings. And so how appropriate for our first recognition to be with our PTSA partners and our scholarship award winners. And with that, I'll invite Brandy Comstock, PTSA Council President, to the microphone.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening, school board members, Superintendent Holman, staff, and our students. It is so exciting for us to be here tonight in person to celebrate our scholarship recipients. My name is Brandy Comstock, and I am the president of the Lake Washington PTSA Council. As you know, this year, more than any other, has challenged us and provided us with many opportunities to grow, to learn, and to try new things. So, as always, there are so many more students than we have awards for, and they are worthy of receiving recognition as well. So we appreciate each of our students and staff that applied. It is an honor, it's a challenge, it's a challenging honor to read through the applications and see what the phenomenal young people are doing as they graduate out of our district. We are very grateful to be here tonight. We have an amazing group of people and organizations to appreciate because they continue to aid us in recognizing students in their various forms of excellence. So first, thank you to the school board for sharing your meeting time with us and annually supporting our auction. We want to thank the Lake Washington Schools Foundation for promoting our fundraising and always helping us to reach our goal. The Lake Washington Education Association actually funds a scholarship for us for one of our graduating seniors. They also support our auction and fundraising. And thank you to the Lake Washington School District leadership team. We appreciate your continuous support and partnership in supporting all of our students. And then we'd like to thank our amazing scholarship chairs, Andrea Stepani and Riva Ramachandran, and fully applaud their efforts in creating 100% virtual program this year. Their dedication, along with the support of our Council VP of Programs, Diane Devlin Thompson, and especially Diane Jenkins, have made it possible to recognize all of these amazing, inspiring students tonight. So thank you all for joining us and being here, and we will let Andrea begin the recognitions.
Thank you, Brandy. As she said, I'm Andrea Stepani, and I'm a co-chair of the scholarship program this year. And she talked a little bit about the items that are on this slide, so I'm going to go ahead and slide on past. I am pleased to introduce the recipients of our 2021 scholarship program. These students and staff accomplished their amazing results during one of the most unusual and challenging years that we have faced. I wish I had more time to talk about each person. What you are going to hear just touches upon their many, many accomplishments, too numerous to list. Our first recipient, Sydney Minter, is unable to join us today. Sydney received a staff scholarship for continuing education and is a second grade teacher at Mark Twain Elementary. Sydney recently joined our district after teaching first grade for 6 years in Texas. After some exceptionally touching experiences with students struggling to read, Sydney aspires to focus her expertise in areas of reading and literacy in order to help students realize and reach their full potential. She will use this scholarship to help her pursue a master's in education at Texas A&M. Please join me in congratulating Sydney. Next, I'd like to introduce our next staff scholarship recipient, Michelle Shaw. She will be attending remotely. Michelle is a teacher for students with vision impairments for Juanita and Redmond learning communities. She has taught in various classroom settings from preschool to high school in the role of general and special educator. After feeling the isolating effects of having children with disabilities, Michelle dedicated herself to help support this community both through her own education and through community events. Michelle will use this scholarship to expand her knowledge of cortical vision impairment, which impacts many of her students. Please join me in congratulating Michelle. Now, for the fun part, the super fun part. Now I will present our student scholarship recipients, beginning with our Perseverance Scholarship winners. This year, we have the ability to give out 2 Perseverance Awards due to a generous donation by Jan and Harold Stone. This award is given to a student who is a well-rounded community member and can show excellence in their life and their academics in the face of hardships or a challenging life circumstance. Our first student recipient of a Perseverance Scholarship is Isabel Akdenez. Isabel, can you go ahead and come up here? Thank you. We're just going to have each of the students come up, and I'll say a few words about each one. Thank you. Yep, right there is great.
Nice.
And why don't you go ahead and, face these guys. Thank you. So that's rough, because she had to be the first one to do this, so thank you. Isabel attends Lake Washington High School, where she is president of Beta Club, senior class vice president, and an active member of many other clubs. She also dances with Elizabeth's Dance Dimensions, was a Jingle Bell dancer, and has worked as a pet sitter, a food vendor, and a child care provider. Isabel will attend the University of Washington in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Isabel. Oh, you can go ahead and take a seat. Thank you. Our next recipient of a Perseverance Scholarship is Ksenia Sokolovskaya. I don't think she's here with us. Oh, yes, she is. Okay, go ahead and come on up. Ksenia is from Juanita High School, and she has a vast background in music, math, science, linguistics that has led to a number of awards and accomplishments. She has balanced a job with helping care for a sibling while taking classes as a Running Start student at Bellevue College. These classes, as well as the example set by an aunt who is a nurse, have developed her desire to pursue a career in a field of medicine, as well as a passion towards helping people. Ksenia will attend UW-Bothell in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Ksenia. Thank you. Our next scholarship is the Turnaround Scholarship, which is presented to a student who has significantly improved their academic record. This year's recipient of the Turnaround Scholarship is Paget Callan from Eastlake High School. Paget has participated in service activities including building a garden and a sports court in the Dominican Republic and has worked at a preschool helping children with their letters and numbers. She is a Running Start student at Bellevue College where she has achieved and maintained a 4.0 GPA, and she will be attending Washington State University this fall. Please join me in congratulating Paget. Our next scholarship is the Lake Washington Education Association Teeley Scholarship, which is presented to a student planning to pursue a career in the field of education. This year's Teeley recipient is Kaylani Crespi from Juanita High School. Kaylani has been a member of Juanita's swim and dive team and a member of their concert choir, as well as a member of a number of other clubs. She is also a member of the Lake Washington Instructional Materials Committee. Some of you are probably pretty familiar with that. Kaylani will be attending Central Washington University in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Kaylani. Our next scholarship is the L.E. SCAR Scholarship, which is given to a student planning to attend a two-year vocational or technical school. This year's recipient is Lance Martin from Redmond High School. Lance has been a member of the RHS swim team throughout high school and participated in WANIC firefight program, which included EMT and CPR training. He has helped our community through projects such as barking public paths, painting school playgrounds, as well as pet sitting and helping people move. He also runs his own yard care service. Lance plans to attend Bridgerland Technical School in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Lance. Our next set of scholarships are for merit, which includes academic achievement, community service, extracurricular participation, and leadership. 2 awards are given per learning community, and a student's learning community is determined by their home address. Our first set of merit scholarships are for Eastlake Learning Community, and our first recipient is Daniel Dickman from Eastlake High School. Daniel is president of Eastlake's Math Honor Society and is the first Eastlake student to qualify for the USA Junior Mathematical Olympiad. He also served as a lead designer and builder for his VEX robotics competition team, which won the 2021 Washington State VRC Championship. He also plays on the Eastlake basketball and tennis teams. Daniel will attend Harvard University in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Daniel. Our next recipient is Fiona Wang from the Cambridge program at Juanita. Fiona is a member of Juanita's swim team and participated in the Health Occupation Students of America State Leadership Conferences. She also co-founded the Awareness for Homelessness organization with 2 of her friends to spread awareness and combat the stigma of those experiencing homelessness across the nation. Fiona will attend University of Washington in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Fiona. Our next recipient is Braden Brackett from Tesla STEM High School. Braden has been head of Tesla's STEM Reach Club, captain of the Juanita tennis team, and a member and officer of a number of other clubs. He also has had leadership roles in a number of City of Kirkland organizations and with the Washington State Technology Student Association. Braden will be attending Purdue University in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Braden. Our next recipient is Ritika Managuli from ICS. Ritika has directed several plays as vice president and then president of ICS's drama club. She has participated at state for Poetry Out Loud and at the national level in a leadership speech competition. She plays soccer for the Juanita Bees, swims on the Juanita varsity team, and dances with Bolly Beats. She also created a company called Volunteer City to help find volunteer matches for kids aged 12 to 17. Ritika plans to attend Indiana University in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Ritika. Our next recipient is Kelly Tran from Lake Washington High School. Kelly co-founded her school's HOSA Future Health Professionals organization 3 years ago and serves as president. She is also a member of a number of other clubs, including National Honor Society, Model UN, and Drumline. She is an instructor at Mathnasium and works as a private tutor as well. She is also a member of Lake Washington's School and Jazz Band. Kelly plans to attend UCLA in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Kelly. Our next recipient is Jasmine Yang, who is unable to be here this evening. She had a sporting event, I believe, to attend. Jasmine is a student in the Cambridge program and has held numerous chair and director positions within the Model UN. She is also club president for DECA, where she placed first in the state and was an international qualifier in personal finance literacy. She also participated in cross country and track and field. Jasmine will be attending Smith College in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Jasmine. Trisha Bear from Redmond High School is our next recipient. She is president of Knowledgeable, Feminism Club, and Model UN Club. She is also an active member of a number of other clubs, and she is a founder of the Artshine Foundation, a nonprofit that utilizes the arts to foster leadership, service, and creativity, which includes providing PPE for seniors in nursing homes as the pandemic raged. Trisha plans to attend Cornell University in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Trisha. Our next recipient is Varun Westcott from Tesla STEM High School. Varun has served 2 terms as ASB president at STEM and started a new district-wide ASB council for all Lake Washington School District high schools to better support students. He also is founder and president of Code Club and created and delivered a computer science course for the Wave Learning Festival. Varun has also won first place in a number of different state competitions, including one for 3D animation and another for on-demand video. Varun plans to attend Dartmouth in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Varun. And our last recipient is Emily Taylor, who is receiving our at-large scholarship. Emily is a student at Eastlake High School, where she has been a varsity member of the swim and dive team and track and field teams. Emily is also a Bio Club research officer and a member of the Math, Computer Science, and National Honor Societies. She is also a runner and officer for the Cascade Orienteering Club and a member of the Sammamish Youth Board. Emily plans to attend Michigan Technological University in the fall. Please join me in congratulating Emily. Our scholarship program would not be possible without the support of the 44 local PTAs in our district, the high school, college, and career specialists who encouraged these students to apply and who have continued to support us throughout this process. Our auction team, led by Melissa Stone, the Lake Washington Education Association, a special contribution by Jan and Harold Stone, and the Lake Washington School District. And finally, I would like to thank our fantastic team of judges. There were a lot, and the hours that they put into reviewing the applications. Also, my co-chair, Riva Ramachandran, who I believe is on here somewhere in the internet, and our VP of Programs, Diane Devlin Thompson. Also, Elena Sellers for redacting names from over 50 applications. She did a lot of them for us. And of course, all the wonderful students and staff who submitted their applications for these scholarships. Please join me in congratulating them on this accomplishment.
Okay, Brandy, we also wanted to take a moment just to recognize you as well this evening. Like all of us, you've been through a pandemic in a leadership role, and you've been an ardent supporter through this process. You've given great feedback. You've been honest with us, and just want to thank you for everything that you've given to the district over this last year. Your PTSA council representatives, the different presidents, the different schools, they were able to manage this year through your leadership, and we just want to recognize you. To your left, there's a potted plant and flowers that are for you, and we just want to recognize you tonight as well. So thank you for everything you've given.
May I add that she does it with a smile? I have never seen Brandy without a smile on her face, so thank you for keeping it upbeat and positive.
You need to draw that on your mask, though.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. We will now take a short 5-minute break prior to public comment. The meeting will reconvene at 7:25 p.m. Unmute here. Great. We'll get started again just in one moment. The next item on the agenda is public comment. The Board of Directors of the Lake Washington School District welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board.
Where's the...
Hold on one moment. Okay. Thank you, Director Carlson. The Board of Directors of the Lake Washington School District welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. The board dedicates 30 minutes at these meetings to hear from the public during a public comment period. Currently, there are 3 options to submit public comment. You may do so in person by pre-registering in advance of the meeting. To do that, please email Diane Jenkins at djenkins@lwsd.org by 1 p.m. on the date of the meeting. You can also submit public comment by writing the board. Please submit public comments to Diane Jenkins at djenkins@lwsd.org by 3 p.m. on the date of the board meeting. These comments are compiled, distributed to the board, and posted on the district's website. Due to time constraints, not all individuals that submit written public comment will have their statement read aloud at the meeting. Finally, you can provide televised public comment through the Teams platform. To do so, please also email Diane Jenkins by 1 p.m. on the date of the meeting, and a Microsoft Teams link will be shared with you, during which you can join the board meeting. You can then share your comments, which are recorded and televised. All public comments, whether in person, televised, or written, are limited to 3 minutes per person. And we have, for those in attendance, a stoplight over my left shoulder. First, we have Susan and John Peterson here to provide public comment. Mr. and Ms. Peterson, could you step up to the podium?
So I'm Susan, and I'm the only one speaking today, so, okay. So I'll just open up and lay it out for you, and I realize the question may not be answered, but then hopefully someone will get back to me. So we understand, our understanding is that May 5th, Governor Inslee signed a bill that requires critical race theory teaching for all teaching staff, board of directors, et cetera. And when I look at this, I know that it's a very divisive ideology. And I know when I look back at really the teachings that are most meaningful to me, as well as I think most of us, are things from Martin Luther King, where we should be judged by our character and not the color of our skin. So putting all those things together, my question really for all of you and for someone to get back to me is, what are the plans going forward? So if they're going to teach all of you this, what's the intent out of that teaching? What exactly are the next steps? And ultimately, I'm assuming the thought is this will be taught to our children. And so what does that look like? So my children are raised, but I think it takes a village to raise a child. And I'm responsible for my neighbor's child as well as my children. So the question I have is, important to understand what is the intent and where are we going with critical race theory in our public schools. I'm a taxpayer, I pay for it, and ultimately the schools work for us, and we just want to know. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming tonight, Ms. Peterson. Next, we have 2 written public comments for tonight. Let's see here. And I will read both aloud. The first is from John Gartner. And Mr. Gartner writes, our PTSA board has been asked by our school counselor for a grant of $1,450 to cover the cost of additional SEL curriculum she and many others feel will be needed next school year. As you know, there's virtually no difference between PTSA's funding this need and asking parents out of their own pockets. Is there any particular reason LWSD cannot cover the cost of additional SEL curriculum, which I'm assuming you all agree is an urgent need for the upcoming school year for its students? If you are facing challenges obtaining funding, I'd like to know where they originate and what parents might be able to do to help. Also, I was pleased to hear that attestation forms will be done away with for the upcoming school year. While I do not believe we are there yet, I'm hopeful that mandatory masking will soon join them. I mention this because I felt there was some reluctance to accept that the decision to move from 6 I just tied myself out there. To move I'll read it, so I'll start that again. I mentioned this because I felt there was some reluctance to accept that the decision to move from 6 feet to 3 feet of distancing could happen as quickly as it did. And I would like to see LWSD remain a leader in our area by quickly adapting to changes in guidance that will improve upon the student experience. And that was from Mr. Gartner. The next public comment we received is from Joy Randall. Ms. Randall wrote, "This last year has shown what is possible if there's enough urgency and desire to make changes. The tremendous work that teachers and staff did to create remote learning, then to transition to a hybrid in-person was extraordinary because it was called for and done. This shows that changes that students of color and their families have called for are just as possible to build the racial and social equity our district is still lacking. Despite the passing of a year since George Floyd's death and now the easing of COVID-19 restrictions, the urgency is still here to work towards changes that the Families Alliance of Black Student Excellence have demanded. I invite all of you to please attend a debut screening of a special video called Students of Color Speak Out, which is on June 19, 2021. This project is in collaboration with brave LWSD students who share their stories and vision for a school district that truly values its Black, Indigenous, and people of color. This is a special Juneteenth celebration at the Redmond Downtown Park from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We hope to see all of you attend to begin important conversations and actions for change. Thank you for your time. And that was from Joy Randall. Is there anyone else in attendance tonight who would like to address the board but did not have the opportunity to sign up? Yes, please.
Take my mask off. I can't read it. If it's okay. Hi, my name is Marielle Heiser, and I have 2 high school students at Eastlake, and I'm a member of the Family Alliance of Black Student Excellence, Lake Washington, FABS. I wanted to read a letter that, just to kind of amplify, that was something submitted last year that addresses the racial inequities and trauma that hasn't really been addressed over this past year. Dear Board of Directors, Lake Washington School District, the Family Alliance of Black Student Excellence, Lake Washington, appeals to you on behalf of Lake Washington School District's Black, Brown, and African American students, both present and future, impacted by the racial trauma and systemic oppression that exists within the Lake Washington School District. Under this board's leadership, the Lake Washington School District's commitment, as stated on the district website, is that each student will graduate prepared to lead a rewarding and responsible life as a contributing member of our community and greater society. As parents of Black, Brown, and African American students, we believe that this commitment should include Black, Brown, and African American students. If that commitment was upheld for Black students, we would not be speaking before you today on this issue, as so many have done in the recent past. We do not see, hear, or believe that there is a sense of urgency to implement, to fully support, staff, and fund the racial equity work required to dismantle the inequities forced upon Black students in Lake Washington. The Lake Washington School District maintains a ranking of 2nd in the state, while thousands of students matriculate through the district, never having had at least one Black classroom teacher or educator. This is a harmful practice, not just to Black and Brown students, but it also puts white and other races students at risk, knowingly and unknowingly adopting racist attitudes and behaviors. While all our students and their families have been adversely impacted by COVID-19 in one way or another, the trauma, terror, and isolation of Lake Washington School District's Black students is compounded by the visceral killing of Mr. Floyd, not to forget Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the other citizens who lost their lives at the hands of members of our society who matriculated through districts mirroring this one. Black students have appealed before this board in the past, reliving their racial trauma in hopes that their stories would be heard and acted upon with measurable outcomes. We will no longer subject our Black children to the trauma of appealing to this board. On their behalf, we demand that you uphold your commitment to serve all students, and immediately, such as hire Black school counselors at the elementary, middle school, and high school level before the fall of 2020, now 2021. Lake Washington School District has employed over 2,000 certificated staff members, including classroom teachers. Less than 10 of them are Black and/or African American. Hire Black educators in proportion to the number of schools and students within the district. Demonstrate how the ongoing feedback, the surveys, responses the district continues to draw from the parents of Black and African American students translates to measurable outcomes. Be transparent, share the hiring, promotion, and retention practices of the district's current Black staff members. And last but not least, update the curricula and reconstruct the deficit-based instruction of Black history. Almost a year ago to the date, none of these measures have outlined here regarding these inequities forced on our Black students have been truly implemented or even used to shape policy. We not only need progress, we demand progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance tonight who would like to address the board? Okay. Thank you, everyone who took the time to either write the board or come tonight. We really appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the June 7, 2021 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Bleasner that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Dr. Holman, will you please poll the board?
Director Sage,
Yes.
Director Bleasner,
Yes.
Director Carlson,
Yes.
Vice President Stewart,
Yes.
and President La Liberty.
Yes. Dr. Holman, will you please summarize the donations that were received?
Absolutely. Tonight, we have donations totaling $20,451 coming through our PTSAs, continuing to support our schools, students, and programs. We thank them for that.
The first item on the non-consent agenda tonight is the district textbook adoption for K through 5 math. Dr. Holman, will you please get us started?
Absolutely. And I will invite Dr. Jen Rose, there she is, to the microphone. She and her team are here tonight to present the board with K-5 textbook adoption in mathematics. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Dr. Rose.
Thank you. We are really excited to be able to be here tonight. So let me get this started. So tonight, we are, like I said, this has been a process for us, and we've got a great team assembled in the back. We've had a large committee working on this for about 2 years. But I'd like to invite our team that's presenting tonight is Jennifer Gaylord, who's our elementary math specialist, Daniel Lancaster, Stephanie Miller, and Kenny Short, who are also going to present with us tonight. It was a wonderful, extensive process, and we'll give a brief overview. I also want to recognize we have a few other committee members in the back, Lucy Davies and Heidi Lindquist Lane, that were part of it as well. So we had a great team working on it. Our goal tonight is to go over briefly the K-5 math adoption process, some of the technicalities of it. And then we really want to actually use tonight for the teachers and our math specialists to go into some of the things that make our recommendation really exciting and really special. So we want to talk about the research that we used as we dove into the different programs and chose this one. We want to share the elements that helped us help this curriculum, help our students get to deep learning, and really think about deep engagement for each and every student. And then we want to talk about what's built into this curriculum that helps every single student achieve high levels of math and a productive disposition in math. And then next, we want to share our next steps in implementation for our recommendation for math. So just as a brief recap of where we started this process, we're a little ahead of the adoption schedule for K-5 math because almost exactly 2 years ago, we recognized that we had some significant needs in our K-5 math curriculum, and we had some issues with expiring resources. So we formed a large committee that had a representative from every elementary school with teachers and administrators and specialists, and took a pretty deep dive into looking at the current research on K-5 math curriculum, and then looked at our own math curriculum and followed the adoption processes to evaluate whether or not we needed to move ahead with an adoption. So after spending, about almost a year on that learning and discussion process and evaluation of where we were, it was really clear that we needed to adopt new math curriculum. So we moved further into the formal adoption process with our committee. In that first year, we spent quite a bit of time doing a deep dive into the learning to help us guide our choice for quality curricular materials in 2021. There's been a ton of research over the past 20 years that has changed the way math looks, so we wanted our committee to be deeply focused on standards, equitable practices, and current effective pedagogy and instructional practices. With that, we developed our district rubrics. We revised and developed district rubrics to be able to spend some time thinking about how would we best evaluate deeply and equitably curriculum. And then we took those rubrics this past fall. We evaluated from 12 different curricular materials down to 2 that were able to pilot during COVID. And I want to do just a call out and a shout out to all of the teachers that were able to pilot during a really tumultuous time and really helped us get quality information about the curriculum so that we could make a good choice. And now at this point, we've got a recommendation for you. And pending the board meeting tonight, we are planning professional development and implementation for new curricular materials in the fall. One thing that was really important to us as we looked at curriculum was thinking about how our students perform in math, what are equitable practices related to instruction specifically in math, and how might we use this adoption process as a way to further deepen equitable learning outcomes for all of our students. So that was part of the research that we did that will come up as the teachers are presenting about how the curriculum works in the classroom that really impacted our final decision and recommendation. We also worked with multiple departments. We know that an effective curricular adoption is not just based in teaching and learning. So we worked with intervention services, special education, equity, and accelerated programs to make sure that we were engaging from multiple lenses and thinking about the curriculum that way. We also used a modified version of OSPI's Screening for Biased Content tool, which is a new tool that they released in February of this year, that a subgroup on our team modified so that it was math specific. So we could really think deeply about what should we be looking for in curricular resources that meet all of our students' needs. So that's the brief overview of the overall process. Along the journey, we got input from students through surveys, through teachers surveying them informally, through digital surveys. We were able to do classroom visits during COVID so we could see implementation in progress in the classroom, which was great. Lots of conversations through the pilot, lots of use of surveys with teachers and conversations, and feedback again through our large committee that had at least 1, if not 2 to 4 people piloting in every school. We worked with administrators. We've had a great team of administrators through the pilot. And then we've also had collaboration with other districts to talk about their pilot and their adoption process and to be able to potentially plan some shared learning with other districts. We engaged the community through an online information night and through online surveys for almost 2 full months with information available digitally and physically here at the Resource Center. So we've had some good outreach, but we wanted to take some more time to dive in more specifically and share with you the specifics of Learn Zillion. So with that, I'm going to introduce Jennifer Gaylord.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gaylord. I'm the K-5 math specialist, and I'm going to share a little bit of information about the learning that the committee did and how we use that information to really drive the information that we're looking for in our pilot. So when we engaged in our professional learning, we did a lot of learning around, of course, equitable practices, but really current math research and what that means for instruction and the implications. We did a deep dive into several NCTM resources, particularly Principles to Actions, which outlines the mathematical teaching practices, which the teachers are going to speak to more specifically. But we did a book study into Taking Action, which is based on Principles to Actions, but it's the application of the research and how that really looks in a K-5 math classroom, and how those equitable teaching structures and strategies are embedded within math instruction. We also use some information and resources from Catalyzing Change, which is another more of a systems-wide book on, or I should say resource, on how math instruction should be changed based on current research. We also use Joe Bowler's work on productive struggle and student discourse that really, again, feeds into those equitable structures in math instruction. And with that, I'm going to introduce Danielle Lancaster from Dickinson.
All right, hi, good evening. I'm Danielle. I teach third grade at Dickinson Elementary currently. And I wanted to highlight the math teaching practices that we explored in our research. So these are coming out of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And it's also aligned with a lot of the research we did using Joe Bowler's work and some other articles that we read in the past couple of years. And when teachers are doing these 8 practices, math learning is student-centered. So students in these environments make sense of math conceptually, but they also practice developmentally appropriate procedural fluency. We wanted a curriculum that would support teachers as they made these 8 moves. And Illustrative Mathematics is a student-centered program that aligns with current math research and supports teachers with their instruction so that kids learn math deeply. We are confident as a committee that Illustrative Mathematics is the program most aligned to current math research. So the first practice is clear goals. Illustrative is aligned not only with the math content standards, but also with the standards for mathematical practice, which deal with the application of math, reasoning in math, and solving problems. So an equitable math program provides relevant and meaningful tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving. And when I was piloting Illustrative, I saw some of my traditionally high-flying students that could soar given the tasks in this program. They weren't limited to one method that I may have been teaching on that day. They could take a task and use what they knew to solve it in the way that made sense to them. While they were engaged in the math tasks at high levels, students who may have been traditionally marginalized in math could also have access to those math tasks. There was learning both at a concrete level and then taking it to a more abstract level as well. And the math routines that were embedded into each lesson invited students to share their thinking. The routines asked students to analyze and evaluate different strategies, and so we worked toward procedural fluency and discussed the most efficient strategies for solving those problems. And a very exciting aspect of Illustrative Mathematics is how empowering it is for students. With an equity lens, we asked the question as a committee of who holds the power in a math classroom? How does a curriculum provide space to honor student voice? How do we uncover student thinking? And all students in this program have opportunities to engage in productive struggle. Teachers use questioning strategies to uncover student conceptions while pushing students to explore new ideas. My third graders were begging to come up to the board and share their thinking and make it visible. I even have a quote from a student who was not traditionally an academic leader who said, "I don't quite have my answer yet, but here's how I started." So the students learned that there was value in productive struggle and there was value in making sense of problems and not only arriving at that final solution. The structure of the program also builds 21st century skills like creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. This is a snapshot of the equity framework that the small group within our committee worked to make. And they focused on 4 main buckets when it comes to culturally responsive teaching in math. The first is communication. So I mentioned power previously, and we wanted materials where student voices would make up over 50% of lesson time. We looked at the types of questions provided in the materials, and in Illustrative, there are opportunities for all students to engage. Questions are intended to meet students where they are, and then build from that to new learning. And the questions focus student thinking on new concepts. So this is an example of an open-ended fraction problem where there are multiple correct answers and there's a focus on the conceptual understanding. The students have voice, the student have choice, and it prompts this kind of problem prompts discussion with multiple answers and engaging discourse. With family engagement, we wanted relevant problems that all students could access. We did not want the context to be a barrier for anyone in math learning. So this example shows a problem, an elapsed time problem related to riding the bus, and it's built into the curriculum that you just quickly address what is that background, who's ridden a bus, what does riding a bus mean? So this is just one example of where there's background building and we are trying to eliminate barriers for students accessing their math problems. The curriculum also includes family letters to send home, including questions to ask your students when they're at home, to have the students really show you what they're thinking if they're getting stuck. Illustrative also includes lots of opportunities for kids to think deeply about math. That is standards-based, but it's building on students' strengths, and we're eliciting what kids already know. There are complex tasks that could have multiple solutions to arrive at that successful answer, and they do invite a productive struggle, and that productive struggle leads to deeper learning. Finally, thinking about social justice and the big picture, we're looking for critical thinking and real-world application, so evaluating things, students being empowered to solve problems. One example, this is a lesson I taught Friday, thinking about area and perimeter. There was a quick question about tiny houses. Why would that possibly be good for the environment? And it's just a snippet of how the real-world connections are made, and we're asking students to evaluate real-world situations. All right, next, Stephanie Miller will share more details.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Miller, and I'm a first grade teacher at Lakeview Elementary. And I'm going to speak to you tonight about some different ways in which illustrative mathematics is student-centered. So the first way that illustrative mathematics is student-centered is because of the differentiation that is present within the curriculum. The teacher materials give information about supporting students who are English learners and students with disabilities, as well as ways to advance student thinking. There are activities that allow multiple entry points, so students can choose which strategy makes the most sense to them for a given problem. And the center activities that are available within the curriculum are available in multiple stages that are connected to a learning progression of mathematical understanding. So if a student has shown mastery of the mathematical concepts covered in the center activity for a given lesson, there's an extension opportunity available for them by working on the next stage of that math center activity. The lessons focus on developing conceptual understanding by explaining and comparing strategies and solutions. The goal is for students to understand how problems are solved and why, instead of just finding the right answer. All students are engaged in high-level challenging tasks, and students are challenged to think more deeply about mathematical concepts instead of doing more problems. Questions and discussions allow for students' understanding to be deepened and taken further. This differentiation connects to the math practices that Danielle just outlined. The first one is supporting productive struggle in learning mathematics, because all students are engaged in challenging mathematical tasks throughout the lessons. Another math practice that is connected to differentiation in illustrative is the use and connecting of mathematical representations, because students get to choose different mathematical representations and strategies to solve problems that work best for them and make the most sense in that given problem. Then those strategies are compared and connected to one another to help students develop their understanding of the math concepts. Also, the math practice of elicit and use evidence of student thinking is present in the differentiation because throughout the lessons, teachers have evidence of what students understand that they can use to determine how to best support them and deepen their understanding. Finally, the math practice of build procedural fluency from conceptual understanding is also present in the differentiation because the lessons are structured to support students in developing a strong foundation of conceptual understanding of math concepts from which they can build their procedural fluency. Another way that illustrative mathematics is student-centered is because of the rich discussions that come from the lessons in this curriculum. There are opportunities for partner talks and class discussions throughout the lessons. Discussions allow for students to explain and compare different strategies and solutions. There are some examples of problems in which students can discuss their thinking on the screen. And in my classroom, when I was doing some of the lessons, there were times that there were maybe 6 different strategies on the board, and students were really analyzing the strategies and saying, I started off by doing it the same way as that person, but then at the end I did this instead. And so they were really understanding the strategies and how they connected to the problems and how their strategy was the same as someone else's but also different, which was really fabulous to see. The questions, there are questions available that teachers can ask to take discussions and students understanding further in the teacher materials. And the discussions take place during the lesson, during the activities, during the centers, and all of this connects to some of those mathematical practices that Danielle was talking about as well, because there is the math practice of facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse. This is possible in this curriculum because there's discourse among students and comparisons of strategies throughout the entire lesson. And also, students are able to use and connect mathematical representations because students get to choose the different math representations and strategies that they want to use to solve problems, and then those are compared as students share how they solve their problem. Finally, the math practice of posing purposeful questions is also present because teachers pose purposeful questions within the curriculum to facilitate the discussions amongst the students and help them develop their mathematical understanding of the concepts. Finally, another way that illustrative mathematics is student-centered is through the centers, the games, and activities. Like I mentioned earlier, these are available in multiple stages, so they can be used to help differentiate understanding for students. And they allow students to use and show those different strategies within them. Students get to work with their peers and have those discussions as they are engaging in the activities. And they also are highly engaging to students. My students were so excited every time I mentioned that it was center time, and they hands down said that that was one of their favorite parts. These center games and activities also connect to the mathematical practices that Danielle talked about. The first is implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving, because students are highly engaged in solving and discussing math tasks using math reasoning. And also the math practice of facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse is present here as well, because throughout the center games and activities, students are talking with one another about math. And next, I'm going to introduce Kenny, who will come talk about assessment.
Evening, Dr. Holman, directors. Kenny Short, John Muir Elementary. I'm a second grade teacher. Here to talk about assessment with illustrative math. Elham Kazemi, the Condit Professor in Math and Science Education at the University of Washington's School of Education, has this quote, "There are no misconceptions, only signals to student conceptions," unquote. Only signals to student conceptions of mathematics that teachers need to identify and use to better inform their instruction and respond to student needs. Over and over again, the assessment regime of illustrative math puts students' work on display for teachers and students so that signals to student math conceptions, along with the signs of progress and mastery towards the Common Core standards, are easily identifiable. The assessments allow access for all students to show what they know in math. Lastly, the assessment tasks promote reasoning and problem solving instead of simple rote algorithmic fluency. Teachers are constantly collecting data on student learning in both formal and informal ways. The foremost way in which we assess and advance student academic ability is by posing purposeful questions. Illustrative math provides teachers with purposeful questions to ask their students that help them probe student thinking and encourage justification and reflection. In my classroom, the amount of evidence of student thinking on display has created an environment where there's a plethora of opportunities to pose purposeful questions that are individualized to students. These probing and justification questions provided by IM attune students to respond with their reasoning, not just what they think is the right answer. IM's formative assessment materials include pre-unit practice problems, a K1 checklist of indicators, and daily cooldowns. The cooldown assessments come with a response to thinking. This section in the teacher's guide, which gives teachers insight into common student mistakes and how to respond with interventions. In addition, there are section checkpoints which assess acute skills that show progress towards the major standards the whole unit is working towards. Again, in my classroom, I gave these section checkpoints as a pre and post test. That way I could elicit and use student thinking from the pre-test in my planning of the coming section and provide students a reflection point for their progress via analysis of their own pre-test and post-test performance. Furthermore, IM's tasks promote reasoning and problem solving, not just rote computation. Just the other day, while immersed in a cool-down task, I had a student yell out, "I want to go to the next problem like this because this is fun. I love math." Not a fake quote. Luke gave me permission to say that. There is no finer endorsement of IM's math task than that quote from Luke. Finally, there are traditional unit assessments which test the student's ability on given Common Core grade level standards. Teachers are provided pre-unit practice problems, which can give key evidence of student preparedness for the conceptual or procedural learning required in a coming unit. But most importantly, the unit assessments themselves employ tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving, and they engage students in making connections between math representations. In my classroom, for the first time in my teaching career, I observed students choosing problem-solving methods on assessments based on the problem type. For example, employing an open number line when doing simple 3-digit by 2-digit subtraction without regrouping, but then using a base 10 block model when tackling a more rigorous 3-digit by 3-digit subtraction problem with regrouping. That is a high level of student reasoning for second graders, and it was promoted by the IM curriculum itself. And Jennifer Gaylord is going to come talk about student feedback.
I just changed my name last week, so that's why he had to think about that one. But so speaking of Kenny's quote from Luke, these are direct quotes from the pilot feedback from the students. And we selected these quotes to highlight because it does speak towards the shift in math instruction. It highlights, as you can see, what the students are feeling in response to the IM lessons. And it speaks to discourse, it speaks to collaboration, it speaks to access for all. The other thing that really stands out is kids wanted to be a part of math. They were excited. I mean, I could have put several more on here. There were some that said, I believed in myself. It made me feel good to complete these problems. It challenges your brain. I felt good when I could complete this. And often, math has been taught traditionally as kind of independent. There's a lot of independent work, and a lot of these quotes talk about the discourse, the questioning, the collaboration with their peers, and just that feeling that we want all kids to have about math. All right, and Jen.
So then, our next steps, if it's approved, is to provide professional learning over the summer and going into August. Thinking about those teaching strategies are so important as we go into implementation. We'll collaborate with Illustrative Mathematics and LearnZillion to make sure there's high-quality training and smooth implementation with a multi-year implementation plan. We know that this is a complex area of change, and so we really want to make sure that we're doing a thorough job with it. We also know that it's going to be really important to plan multiple parent engagement and learning activities and opportunities, some that are district-based, some that are school-based, and then to build onto what illustrative mathematics already has as strong parent engagement, to have that larger engagement as a community. One of the things that we wanted to highlight as we think about this adoption and this implementation are what we shared with the ELA adoption, that we're really thinking about how our curriculum actually responds to, that has elements for equity, opportunity, and access for all, that we are supporting a multi-tiered systems of support with the opportunity for universal design for learning, that we are very focused on being standards-based and accelerating students learning to grade level standards, each and every student. And thinking about one of the quotes that we got from a parent on the online survey was wonderful. It might have been after the parent night, and he said, looks like great curriculum, but will it be responsive to what students need to be doing in 10 years? How will this curriculum make sure that students 10 years from now have the math skills that they need? So that really spoke to us in thinking about 21st century skills and really thinking about what our students need, not just in first grade or third grade or fifth grade, but what they need when they're in here getting the PTSA scholarship in about 10 years. There's a focus on effective instructional practices and long-term systemic thinking about how we make sure that we're supporting all of our teachers to support all of our students. We also just want to take a moment to thank the adoption committee. This was one of the more challenging times to run a major adoption. Math is a major thing to be thinking about in elementary. So we'd like to thank the committee and all the pilot teachers. We had many more teachers join in the pilot as well. And they just responded to such challenging and flexible circumstances with just tremendous professionalism and commitment. And we also want to thank our students. They really fully engaged. They were going through that same tumultuous time as well, and they were fantastic participants and learners right along with us. So that is our formal presentation, and we would love to answer any questions you might have.
Director Stewart? And Director Sage.
What? Okay. I've got a few questions, and don't take it the wrong way. It's not clear to me, okay? How did these selections improve on equity over the last curriculum in a very basic way? I mean, that's what I'm missing here.
Right.
I'm hearing the different strategies and so forth and how it means it to the teacher, but I'm not sure if I were the student, I'd be able to see a difference. And maybe I'm just not looking at it right.
The goal is you as a student should feel and see a very striking difference in traditional mathematic education to what illustrative mathematics will provide. And the teachers can speak more to it as well. But specifically centering student voice, having students engage with each other, student discourse, multiple ways that students can engage with the curriculum, those are a few of the indicators of culturally responsive education, culturally responsive teaching. So there's the mathematical practices that that Danielle talked about, those 8 in the beginning, are directly aligned with equitable teaching practices that center on students. But I can let the teachers talk a little bit more about that as well.
So there's so much student choice and student ownership of their learning that they're really becoming mathematicians who think, not just who do what Mrs. Lancaster taught them on Monday. And rather than have a new math strategy taught every day, which can feel very confusing for some of our youngest learners or struggling learners, they stick with the same concept for a couple of weeks, and the students really refine the best strategy for them, or they revise their thinking to find a strategy that's more efficient or that's even better for them. But that thinking happens as a group of students and as individuals, not as the teacher taking ownership of that learning and prescribing exactly the learning path for every student. So that focus on student voice enables all kids to have more access and be empowered to be successful as mathematicians.
Director Sage?
Well, I had a couple that I was, let Cassandra go on and I'll come back to mine. Thank you for that.
I was just going to say that I had the opportunity to observe this pilot online during remote with the 3rd grade. And then I got to see it in person when kids went back to school buildings for 1st and 3rd grade. And this was the kind of math I wish that 2 out of 3 of my now high school grads had. Because they always came to a problem out and about and around and finally would come to the answer only to have the teacher say, oh, actually, we want you to do it this way. And that is just not how their brain operated. And it would have been so fulfilling for them to have sort of been just affirmed that they can find the answer, they can draw it however it makes sense to them, and they can work it. And I can attest to how excited the kids were, and all of them wanting to be called on so that they could give their answer. And every single kid was called on if they had their hand up and wanted to participate, so that their perspective on how they solved the problem could be shared. And the other kids would also get excited for them, and the teacher would always have them celebrate that so-and-so found this way to get it. And there were always kids who decided they didn't know they were doing division, but somehow they divided and came up with the answer. It was just really surprising to me to see how excited everybody was to do math.
Thank you. IM is really a yes and curriculum, so it really allows for all of that. There are so many right answers. And we're still really focused on standards-based math. So you are going to get that procedural fluency, you are going to build to that conceptual depth, but you are also going to get that affirmation of a productive math disposition, and everybody is a math learner.
And if you think about it, having been an avid volunteer, that's what we're doing when we are avid mentors. The kids are coming up with, what do I know? What information do I have so I can solve this geometry problem? And we're listing it out. And then we're trying to piece things together to see, okay, does anybody else in the small group have another piece to this puzzle, or any ideas on where we go from here? And when the kids are able to discuss it with each other, they sort of seem to build confidence in reaching the answer, which is very exciting for me to see that connection between 3rd grade and 10th grade.
One side note, and then I promise I'll let you guys ask more questions, but a side note that came from several years ago when we were working on the science standards and we were embedding them into our high school science. I ended up, for a number of different reasons, talking with multiple department chairs of chemistry departments, so UW, Whitman, PLU, UPS, the chairs of chemistry departments, and the chairs of the admissions offices. And my question to them was, what are the attributes of someone who's successful? And I was asking specifically in science, a successful student in their first year in science in college. And I was actually calling people, so cold calling them. And what they said to me, and it could have been reading from a script, was they all said to me, they get many students who can say X plus Y equals Z. Almost all students can do that. Some can say X plus Y equals Z, and therefore goes to, and put that into another equation. Good group of students can do that. Then some can say X plus Y equals Z, and then I'm going to apply it in another context. And that's where, like, if students can do that, that's pretty significant if they're able to take this learning and apply it across fields. But they said the part that where many, many students are not able to go, which really impacts their success in college, is why does that matter? And how does that apply to you? So one of the things that we really loved about IM was it got to that. Why is this problem important? Why is this thinking important? How would you use this in real life? And what is the context in the real world? So that's one of those, like, I was thinking as we were watching the PTSA Awards tonight, thinking about the learning of those students and the application of them. Like, I wanted to talk to that student from Tesla and say, we have a job for you as a computer science teacher. But thinking about that's the kind of thinking and productive disposition and identity that we want for our students as they grow up in math.
Director Stewart, and then we'll go back to, with Director Carlson, then we'll go back to Director Stewart.
Well, I've got a lot of questions too, so I'll just ask one. So I apologize. There's a lot of this where I've been through previous adoption, and my main concern is that our pendulum swings. And so my first question is, group work is potentially valuable, but it's also potentially a massive barrier for kids on the autism spectrum. How does this curriculum help kids not place a new barrier for learning math to kids who have trouble with social interaction?
That's a great question, and it's one that we actually talked about specifically in thinking about all the different kinds of learners that we have in our classrooms. So one is, I don't know if any of you guys want to speak to it more specifically, or I can speak generally. Kenny?
course, any accommodations for an autistic child, we're going to continue to meet regardless, curricular agnostic. But this curriculum also does offer other opportunities for students to learn, like partner work, independent work, and then we can modify any of those interactions as well. It is discourse heavy, certainly, and that's a big change from what we had with Envision, and it's a change we think is a positive one. That's a place in which teachers and in our professional judgment and our experience, we're going to have to figure out ways to include that student in a way that feels safe and appropriate for them. But we think it's an important
And that's
component
something-
of the curriculum, and we think it provides the scaffolding, the supports, the kind of structure of that group work so that the autistic child can access
And
the activity.
that's where I really think it's critically important that we have the professional development support for all teachers. Those of you who are on the panel are enthusiasts. By definition, you're willing to challenge this. You're willing to go into this and do math. And at the elementary level, that's not the average teacher. The question to me becomes, what level of professional development are we providing to all teachers so that they will grasp these things? And sorry, I'm just going to give you a piece of this so you'll understand where I'm coming from. My son, who is Asperger's, just graduated civil at UW, came home from first grade and told me he wasn't good at math because when he was asked to draw things, he had to draw a beetle, and every beetle had to have 6 legs and 2 antennae, and he never finished the problem. So this is something where I'm very concerned about taking kids who can be good at math one way and making them succeed in another way.
So our pilot program did include students on the spectrum. Okay. Imagine that. So speaking from my experience, what I saw was maybe less engaged with discourse and less listening to other kids, but when the discourse was happening, super focused on showing that student's thinking and so engaged with that. And then at the end of all the discourse, ready to come up and say, here's what I did too. And so maybe that connection with other students was different, but there's still so much engagement in the work and the ability for kids to show their thinking without it being prescribed by the teacher.
Good.
So that provided access to everybody.
And that becomes something where that's the right answer. Sorry, there is a right answer for this one. But it is something where it's really critically important to me that every teacher that we're asking to teach this way knows that's the right answer. And that's hard to get that across to everyone. So I'm very curious about what level of support for the teachers. How are we, not just the first year, but in the second year, how do we keep supporting teachers so that they don't wind up stuck with a curriculum where they're not sure how to make it work?
So I can answer on a number of different levels. We actually had our last K-5, we're instead of calling it an adoption meeting, it's a K-5 implementation meeting. So that ran from 4:20 to 5:50 today. And that was a continuation of the planning for implementation for next year and then further down years to come. And so part of today's meeting was identifying success criteria for student learning, for teacher learning and actions, and for administrator learning and actions that then goes to central office and to learning and actions and to parent engagement as well. So that's the thinking that we're building out. That will be a multi-year plan. I will say also as a system, we have come together with all of our different departments and directors and said we need to prioritize K-5 math learning this coming year. Like it's an absolute commitment from our system to say at the elementary level, we're prioritizing K-5 math, but it's not separate from our equity work. It's not separate from our SEL. There'll be discrete sessions, but these things are tied together. So it will be a multi-year implementation, and this first year really is that focus on the why. You know, the curriculum, going from old curriculum to new curriculum isn't just we have old things, we need new things. Our why is how are we going to ensure each and every student in Lake Washington is successful in math and loves math and achieves at high levels. So because, the sentence doesn't stop there, because that helps them be a productive, engaged, fulfilled human being in a democratic society. That's what we're really trying to answer with our K-5 math adoption. So the why is where we start, and then we go into the instructional strategies, and here's how the pieces of the curriculum work together. But that's how we embed our entire work to equity and plan for long-term success.
Which gets to my last piece of the question, which is what level of parent development? The precursor to Envision Investigations, which some of you are young enough that you probably don't remember, had terrible parent development materials. It would have homework come home where we didn't know what they were talking about. When you Google what's a separating situation, you get divorce attorneys. And so is the material that can be sent home to parents where they might not recognize the math homework, is the material adequate to let parents help their kids with their math homework?
Yeah, there's extensive parent resources that will work with illustrative mathematics as well to build what those events look like. So there'll be the daily or the weekly information coming home, but also that engagement on how do we engage parents in the learning as well. So they're not just going, oh, here's the newsletter. So I don't know if anyone wants to speak more specifically to parents. That's all right.
Sorry.
Just giving them, making sure we have full voices.
I'm not against this. I understand the enthusiasm because Envision could be improved upon. I believe that in my heart. I'm just concerned that the pendulum might have swung back in a way that we're not paying attention to a piece of the population, and want to make sure that that is front and center.
And the pendulum, I am old enough to remember Investigations and what was before Investigations.
Right, what was before it was even all,
And this illustrative is not so much a pendulum. It may, I don't think it will feel like that to folks, but it's definitely a difference from traditional math instruction. And of all the curricula that we looked at, all of them were still kind of, dressing up an old style of doing things. Like the other curriculum that we piloted, their version of more challenging was the exact same equation with bigger numbers. That was the challenge. So we did not want to go down that route.
And actually, what you presented, I very much buy that you've gone to the best of these. I'm just very concerned about how do you bring this to parents in a way that it's intelligible. And to succeed, you need to be able to communicate to all the supports for that child.
We recognize that's going to be really important because this is not the math of Investigations or of whatever was before Investigations or Envision. This is different and it's research-based and really high quality.
So thank you.
Yeah. Director Stewart, we'll go back to you.
Yeah. Let me preface this to say I was one of your struggling math students, and I probably didn't get any better at it as finally I left math at 9th grade. Anyway, that's that and done. What Chris brought up about working with the parents brought me back to when they introduced in my school district what they refer to as new math. I think other year they call it new math anyway. But the point was, my mother saw us struggling. She came over. She looked down at it. She said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I have no idea." And she looked at it for about 5 minutes and looked up in my eyes and said, "You're on your own, boy," because she had no clue either. And this is not an unintelligent woman. I don't see. And maybe it's the language of the pedagogy that I don't understand because I'm in a different arena, if you will. But I don't understand how it really helps the struggling student or helps the teacher to address the struggling student other than the fact you have group effort. Is that what is going to address the struggling student? I don't know. You're shaking your head, sir. And I'm happy to address it. Yeah, I appreciate it because I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
I mean, just the tasks themselves that are posed to students are qualitatively different. There's just greater access. We say low floor, high ceiling problems, meaning the barrier to entry, whether it's oral barrier to entry, writtens, whatever it is, the visual aids are strong as well. So there's just multiple access points, at least for the student to engage with the problem, and then multiple ways in which they can show their work, and like I was saying, show their conceptions. And us as teachers, we get the nice guidance from the curriculum as well when they show those conceptions. And maybe, like Elham Kazemi says, they're not misconceptions. They're conceptions that they have about math, but we get guidance from the curriculum that tells us, okay, well, maybe we need to tweak this a little bit. Maybe there's a gap here. Maybe there's something that we need supports for this student. The curriculum advises us on how to identify those supports because the student work is always on display in this curriculum, and it gives us a little lead into where we can go, what intervention we can provide in that moment to address that gap. Not a misconception, but a conception that needs to be helped along. Does that help?
It does to a great extent. It does, but I appreciate all the answers you all gave on how this addresses equity. But I still am not clear if it moves the equity needle across the various spectrums of all the groups that we're needing to help with equity, or if it's just the idea that it teaches it in a different manner and we hope it's going to stick.
The different manner aligns with culturally responsive teaching practices.
Okay.
So the practices themselves align with more equitable teaching practices. One of the side notes about illustrative mathematics, this is brand new. We actually piloted the beta version, and they're publishing it basically for us at the elementary school. At the middle school, it is all of a sudden the most popular curriculum in Washington State. It's funded, its research base is different from than McGraw-Hill or Apprentice or Savas. It's actually a nonprofit mathematical think tank that built it, that's based on current mathematical research and equitable practices. So the practices themselves that teachers will be learning align with culturally responsive teaching. And to echo what Kenny said, and to bring back what he said early in his presentation, one of the things that's really different is this isn't a curriculum where there's going to be a worksheet that comes back, for me too, marked with lots of red slashes that you look at and go, I guess I'm bad at math. This is a curriculum that through the games that Kenny was talking about, kids are doing math in ways that have them, when they actually look at the paper, they go, oh wait, I was just doing this over here at the center. I understand the concept, and now I can apply it in a different concept, so that it's not, if you got it wrong this way, you just keep trying it the same way and continue to get it wrong. You are actually learning math in multiple ways with multiple tools. And like Kenny said, the assessment helps the teacher say, this student could probably use this tool or this strategy or this research because this is what the assessment is showing me about how they're learning.
No, I have no doubt that y'all went to the best experts and found the best program you could.
Right.
I guess what I'm struggling with is, how is that different from last year's?
Oh.
You know, it's one of those compare and contrast questions we always got in school.
Right.
That I sometimes did well or
Right.
not, but I just don't know where you were before.
Right.
And how this improves on it. That's where I'm coming from. It's not
Previous-
criticism.
yeah.
It's just a lack of perspective, if you will.
Right. Previous curriculum, and we can go long or short in depth on this, was much more teacher-centered, teacher talk, right and wrong answers, traditional, here's what we're teaching today, so here's how you do math today. Assessments that you were at standard and you kept on working, or you missed these parts of the standard and you're going to keep on working at this until you get that standard before you go to the next one, as opposed to realizing learning is very flexible, and students can, if you understand where a student is struggling, you can address that piece and help them continue to learn at grade level. So they're very different, and I'll be happy to, especially as we get into it, provide more specific what we used to do compared to what we do now with the actual materials.
Director Bleasner?
Yeah, so actually, just in listening to the conversation and where it's going, the curriculum is the tool, and really it is the implementation by teachers in regards to that piece. So when we spoke to the professional development and that ongoing piece, how will that be continually done in the order for direct feedback for teachers and staff to see how this is working going forward? I mean, I will say I appreciate Director Sage's comments, sort of how she was able to observe and see those options in that setting, so it sort of has that experience. So that's sort of my question from the professional development side. The curriculum is only as good as the delivery by teachers and engagement with students. It's a tool.
Right. That's actually specifically what we're working on now, or what are the success criteria for a number of specific things, like the specific knowledge that we want students to have. So specific knowledge, specific skills, what attitudes do we want students to have, and actually what we want students, teachers, and administrators, because we can't just say we want students to know these things. We have to say, in order for students to have the knowledge, skills, aspirations, attitudes, and behaviors that make them successful in math, we have to provide teachers with that same list of success criteria and administrators with the same list of success criteria that align. So if we say it's really, one of the ways that we'll know we're successful is if we have students able to consistently engage in rich math discourse where they are, where every single student is engaging in some way in learning math and engaging in math in the classroom. Then we need to be able to say, so teachers need the skills to be able to do that, and then administrators to support them. So we'll have more specifics, but we're developing that specific success criteria so that we go beyond, here's our Smarter Balance scores, or here's our FastBridge data, but we're able to practice, and we know we've changed student learning at a fairly in-depth level.
Great, thanks.
Director Carlson?
So, first, thank you so much for putting up with all of the grilling. It is really important in all of this to reach students on the entire spectrum between Mark and I. From the students where, ninth was their end, and I went through the 23rd grade doing math. Somewhere in there is every kid. And what I'm curious about is, does this curriculum, I have had my tiffs with Dr. Bowler, but there's really good stuff there too. Does this curriculum provide a framework for teachers on commonly encountered styles of learning and how best to reach these styles? Whether it's auditory, visual, conceptual, or even things like first learners, where the first algorithm you teach them is the only algorithm they'll ever. I mean, is that something that's in the material that is given in the PD for the teachers?
Not called out in like the thinking around who are auditory or kinesthetic. That's not called out, but more specifically in every lesson, you guys can correct me or add to it, every lesson here's for learners who need additional support. Here are some different things that you might do in this specific lesson, or connected to the assessment. If learners are at this point in the assessment, here are strategies or supports or extensions or challenges that might help them. So it doesn't call it out in terms of those types of learning, but it does call it out in terms of thinking about math pedagogy and the practices around that. The other piece that it provides for, so as I think one of the teachers said, that low floor, high ceiling, I think Danielle said this, that high ceiling is pretty darn high. Like the questions are not around here's the higher number that makes it challenging, but it's much more complex in how might this be applied in a different context, or compare these two different situations and solve thinking mathematically. So it really provides that ability for students to deepen their thinking no matter what their ability is to draw a beetle.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's the whole thing. Many roots to the same concept, and that's what you need to carry forward.
Yeah.
So I'm down with that.
Yeah.
So last question around styles is actually around dyslexia. Does the curriculum have specific accommodations or methods built into it for dyslexic children?
Not that I've seen specific to dyslexia. They have multiple accommodations built into it, and I have to say that that's a lack of knowledge on my part. It may, but I haven't seen it specific to dyslexia.
All right.
One more question from a different spectrum of the mathematics. I know that this basically has, with the kids working at their various perspectives, and they can come in, I solved it this way, I solved it that way, but you still are quote unquote showing your work. There are the students, I had one, who could say, I can do this without showing my work, and he'd get the right answer, but God knows he couldn't tell you how he got there. And knowing the kid, he's not devious enough to cheat, because he'll start laughing when he cheats, so what the hell. But my point is, what about the student who says, I got the answer, why do I have to show this? Now, does he or she then explain it orally? Or what's the method for that student?
Right. We were talking about that, and we were just talking about that.
I don't know if it's exactly what you had in your mind, but so I taught fourth grade when the WASL was still around, and it was like, explain your thinking using words, numbers, and pictures, and it's like all this writing about math, which some kids do great with, but we don't ask questions like that anymore. You can show your work with numbers. As we worked on perimeter, the kids showed an addition sentence if they added up all the sides. And then my kids who were struggling because they haven't been at school this whole year, they could count on graph paper what is the perimeter, but they all know perimeter, and they could access it in different ways. So no one had to write, first I added 10 plus 10, then I looked, they could just write a little equation and be like, bam, you showed your work. So I know in the past there's been some debate about showing your work, but just wanted to show that.
The other piece that we were also talking about is that students that get to the answer just in their head, like it magically appears, I have children like that as well, and are super resistant to writing down their work, they may not be able to articulate the mathematical thinking. So we don't really know to what depth they actually learned it and can replicate it or do it again. So some things that the curriculum asks them to do on occasion is, so solve a different kind of problem and be able to show your thinking that way. And again, like Danielle said, you can show it lots of different ways, but be able to transfer that skill and that knowledge, because often what happens to those kids, and I speak from personal parental experience, things are super easy until they're not. And then their thinking, their depth of mathematical knowledge and expertise, it's not just automatic, they can't do it and they don't know what next to do because it's always been easy. And what do you do if it's always been easy and all of a sudden it's hard? You don't know how to ask those questions. So this curriculum doesn't make them write out the first I added 10 and then I added 2 more, but it asks them to apply their thinking in different ways and show their thinking in different ways so that it's not just saying, show me the same problem. Help me understand your thinking.
I just want to say to all of you, thank you. This is not easy. You have done a very deep dive on this. I cannot say in any way that I don't think this is the best solution. I do not think this is an easy solution. I think we're only about a third of the way done with this if we're going to make it work. But thank you so much for what you've done so far.
Any other board member questions or comments tonight? Director Bleasner? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excellent. Okay. Let's see here. We need a motion, huh?
Yeah. If you'd like to entertain a motion, I'll make
We may want to
one.
approve that or not, yeah.
But how do we
I will
count
now
those votes?
entertain a motion for the board to approve the recommendation from the Instructional Materials Committee to adopt illustrative mathematics for K through 5 math for the use in the district.
So moved.
It's been moved by Director Carlson,
Second.
seconded by Director Sage. Any additional board member questions or follow-up?
What method of math are we going to use to calculate these votes? Sorry.
Pretty good. Director Felicia?
I would just want to say thank you as well to everybody who was involved with the process and going through. I do think that I appreciate the conversation by all the board members in sort of asking those questions. I do think it is our quality of our teachers that help to bring curriculum alive, so appreciate all that extra work that goes into that and thinking about that. So excited. I will admit we were all a little nervous, having some of us live through investigations that we were not very content with over a period of time. So appreciate the way that you've been able to bring this to life is a little bit different and would be supporting the adoption of the curriculum.
Thank you. I was going to say something. That's okay. I just wanted to echo Director Bleason. I really appreciated both the process and the presentation tonight. It makes this a very easy adoption for me. Okay, it has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Sage that the board approves the recommendation from the Instructional Materials Committee to adopt illustrative mathematics for K through 5 for use in the district. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, we can clap again now. All right.
Eric, can you show us your work on that?
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent report, and Dr. Holman will be providing an update on the pathway forward.
Do I dare admit that I taught with investigations math? Okay, so a somewhat brief update this evening. There's a couple questions about Continuous Learning 2.0 during the study session tonight, so I pulled up one of the resources that OSPI has provided, and I jotted down a few notes that kind of help define some of the boundaries of Continuous Learning 2.0, and I will share that memo with the board, but just thought it would be helpful as you're thinking about remote learning for 21, 22, and whatnot. And so I did mention during the study session that the instructional requirement for live in-person instruction, even in a remote environment, is 70% with 30% asynchronous. Absences documented the same as in-person students. Now, there might be some mechanisms that are slightly different, but generally the same. Schedule is one that shows both modality and time, and so have to be very explicit about that. They're very specific about making sure students have access to all available programs and services, and they list off pretty much every program and service I could think of, things such as counseling, nutrition services, tiered supports and intervention, which isn't like a funded program, but wanting to make sure that students actually have access to those intervention type services that are offered, bilingual ed, migrant ed, special education services, all assessment programs, graduation pathways. So just being very explicit that it isn't separate from school, it is squarely a school program, and students have access to all requisite programs and services. It's funded per the prototypical school model, so an hour counts as a typical instructional hour for funding purposes. They talk about local decisions. One local decision is whether you offer the program or not. It's not a mandate by the state. The district gets to define eligibility, and so as you know, health and safety really is the kind of key words that they've provided, and they have not defined it further. And then the local decision is also the schedule. So what that schedule actually looks like, 70% live instruction, 30%. And they have a whole list of recommendations. And this isn't a recommendation for a student, but a recommendation for the district. But it just kind of caught my eye given one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. And it recommends the district commits to continuous learning 2.0 for the entire school year. And so I think there's a reason why they make that recommendation. And so I'll talk about that a little bit, because we've also gotten feedback from families around we may want some flexibility in that. And so that's just, it's an interesting thing that they put that in their recommendations. And so tonight, just want to provide the board with an update around the data that we have collected around interest, K-12 in remote learning or continuous learning 2.0 for the 21-22 school year, and just some next steps that the planning team is going through. And so here is the data that we received. It's in a grid. You can see we've had about 282 students indicate interest in remote learning. The no column shows those that wouldn't be interested in a remote learning program that wasn't connected to their home school. Yes is those individuals that are interested in a remote learning program, even if it's not connected to their home school. And then blank is just those that chose not to respond to that question. And I put this in a graph. I'm hoping this is helpful. I don't know if this is the right format, so Chris will give me a thumbs up or sideways on this. But just the blue line is the total in that grade level. Green is those saying, yes, I would access if it's a district level program. The light blue is no, I would only want it if it's my neighborhood school placement. And obviously the blank is those that didn't respond. So you can see significantly more interest at the elementary level, but there is interest across the board for some level of remote learning. And these are families that have indicated, yes, for health and safety reasons, we would want remote learning for the 21-22 school year. And as part of the survey, we also did ask some demographic data. Just thought it would be interesting for the board to know, based on race and ethnicity, which of our community groups are requesting. And you can see here our Asian community, Asian families are requesting at the highest rate across the board, followed by our Caucasian students. And so it's just of interest. We had the data. I thought I would share that with the board. And so the planning team has been continuing to work. Both Richard Snyder and Matt Gillingham attended Puget Sound ESD remote learning, I'll call it gathering, local districts all getting together to discuss, kind of hear some of the things that the ESD is working on and thinking about. Report was it was helpful to hear other people talk about it, but it wasn't, it didn't provide us with a pathway, and so we're really developing our pathway here in Lake Washington. But we definitely have heard the interest from families around semester one. And so we are building that into our planning to make sure that we can be responsive to that. Because we also, what we don't want to do is set up a system where families feel like we have to try and, work around the district's rules, because we already know a family could pull their student out of a remote learning classroom and, enroll them back into their neighborhood school. So we don't want families to have to feel like they're working the system. And so we will develop plans for that. But it's interesting that the OSPI recommendation is offer this for a full year. And why would they recommend that? And why would we also have an interest in continuity? And I think it goes beyond just, the cost of having extra teachers or lower class sizes. If you think about a classroom experience for a student, that continuity is beneficial for the student. It's beneficial for the teacher. Learning increases as a teacher gets to know their students. And so there is benefit in that continuity. And so I just want to point that out, but also understand we are in a very unique point in time, just given where we are in the pandemic, where we are with some families seeking vaccination for their children, knowing that vaccination could become available for our younger students. So there's so many different variables here that we want to be considerate of and think about as we move forward. The team is going to continue to use data to make decisions around secondary and elementary, working through some of the opportunities and constraints around implementation. And we may have two different models, one an elementary model and one a secondary model, given a couple of things. One, the types of services and instruction, the numbers that you saw, but really we are focused on providing K-12 remote learning opportunities given the data that you saw and given the interest and support for our community. And so next steps, the team is working through determining the model for both elementary and secondary. The tactical planning around implementation, getting down into the absolute details of all of the different components. You heard me read through some of the different pieces, but when you think about having specific access to all available services, we need to make sure that we think through that and plan for that. And then, communication with families, communication with staff. We have to go through our staffing processes, because it's also, thinking about how do we capitalize on the expertise that our staff gained this year in remote learning. And so working towards that as well. So that's my update on continuous learning. Cassandra.
So how do families know what their potential options would be? I know we did that survey that you showed us, but how and when will they know if a remote option is offered for their student?
Yeah, and so the team's working through the what right now, and we just met today with the planning team, and so they have some action items. And so timeline, I asked that same question today, and we couldn't come up with the specific, but we know, once school ends, availability of and access to families starts to dwindle. And so if we can get something out before the end of the school year so families know what is available and what options, because then we also need to do staffing processes. And if a teacher is going to be transitioning to a remote classroom, then we have to backfill for that. So there's a high interest in getting this out. So I can't give you a specific date tonight, but
But it will be before the end of the school year.
with some communication, yes.
Yeah, that's not a whole lot of
No,
time.
it's not, is it? But that's kind of been life lately. Mark?
Yeah, before I get to the questions, I think it's imperative that we have remote options because of the kids who have immune problems, who families have immune problems, that's a given for me. I may not be a scientist, but I spent 10 years at the AMA, and I understand epidemics because I worked through the AIDS one. That said, the questionnaire or the survey, I thought I heard students, but you're saying it was families?
Yes, that went to families
Okay.
for response, yes.
Okay. I know it's difficult to do, but did we look at separating out income somehow? And I guess that would be through free and reduced lunch numbers, but my concern is the family who has, parents have both parents working, or the single parent who's working two jobs, and if this kid needs to be remote for whatever reason, how is that going to be implemented for that child?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be my concern. I mean, I grew up with a single parent, and I just wonder how it could work for them, because I would hate for them not to work for them if they had the physical problem or the immune problems.
Yeah.
And
So Mark,
yeah.
on that, I will just present that to the planning team so that they
Okay.
take that into consideration as
Thank you.
they're working through that.
I
I don't
just-
have a great response as to how we would do that right
No.
now, but
that's all I was asking
definitely
for.
understand that.
Think about it.
Mhm.
So, to clarify, OSPI is strongly suggesting that we do provide this K-12, or?
So OSPI is just giving the parameters. They're
Okay.
not recommending that we do this or don't do this.
Huh,
There
okay.
are a number of districts around us that are choosing not to.
Right.
That's one of the things the team heard when they were on the ESD call, that there's many districts that are just choosing not to do this. We felt it imperative to provide something.
And could you throw the numbers back up, the slide that, because I was just eyeballing that, and your numbers for high school looked like it was 6 or 7 kids per grade level, and that's not viable. But for elementary, where you had more kids, it almost seemed like it would fly.
So Richard Snyder has spent the better part of the last year studying
Yeah.
remote options, and so we will be able to provide a remote option for all students that you see here.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, but not necessarily the virtual participation in your local
Correct.
school.
Correct.
Okay.
And that really is true across the board here. I mean, there's, because if I showed you the breakout by school,
Yeah.
there's some schools, I think the most I saw at one school was maybe 6 or 7.
Right.
And that's just not a viable model.
Yeah.
And it really, to Siri's point a couple weeks ago, even a learning community model, you can see
It
here.
still doesn't break out. Yeah.
It may not be viable. It
Yeah.
could be viable in a couple of instances, but even that is slight.
But anyway, I do want to echo Mark's point to the immunocompromised that are out there, whether it's the student themselves or somebody in their household. I think we do need to provide this, so thank you for being creative.
One more question. Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody else?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, now it left me. Okay, where was it? Boy, easy come, easy go. Yeah, I am immunocompromised right between the ears. No, but I'll think of it later and I'll get back to you. I'm sorry.
Dr. Bleasner?
And so I appreciate the fact that we are going forward with offering a remote option. I think that is important. The other question, at least we've had some discussions with neighboring districts, with other board directors of, is there a way to share capacities? Could we partner with Issaquah or North Shore and provide opportunity for more students that way, recognizing that that doesn't address a neighborhood school concept, but perhaps then allows for greater opportunity?
Thank you for reading my mind when I couldn't.
So I'll speak to the ALE piece. So the ALE rules haven't changed, and if any portion of this were to be ALE, you can only have 10% of students outside of your district. Beyond that, we haven't then gone and explored the idea of students' choice transferring in. That's what inter-district transfer is called now. And so students, choice transferring in to build up our remote. And so that would be something I'll put to the planning team, they have Richard has connections in all of our neighboring districts around remote learning, online learning, so.
I assume that has other implications and ramifications, though, that once you accept a student in to your district, then you have a long going, and then with...
So a choice transfer is a year to year.
Ah, it is.
And so
Okay.
it's only a 1-year acceptance, and then students have to reapply every year.
That solves that, then. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Monster. If the students can opt in, and I know that one of the problems we've had with letting students opt into our district because our walls are just bulging. Is this possibly a way to address that for students that prefer our district, even if there's not a pandemic issue? And also, is there an economic impact if those students opt out of Issaquah or North Shore or wherever to that district?
Yes. And so every time a choice transfer is signed, it has to be signed by two parties. One, the sending district, and two, the receiving district.
How often
And
does it get
essentially
turned
what
down?
the sending district is saying is, we give up our rights to the funding, full funding for this student.
That leads to my question. Does that happen often where the sending district says, no, we're not going to let anybody go? Or in your memory?
The person that could answer that question is not here.
Okay.
Rick Burden
No problem.
he's been dealing with the choice transfers
Okay.
for years. And
Just thought I'd
so
ask.
I don't believe that's a typical response, but for a small district, a single FTE, 3 FTE, that adds up really quickly.
Well, I'm thinking too in this situation where we're talking about more students than would regularly be doing that because of the remote nature, because of the immune problems. That could add up pretty quick for a district. And I just don't know if that's going to end up being then a battle over, you can't have my students.
Right.
And then the parents are going to be madder than hell. I would be. But I guess we'd be the shining knight in that one.
We already sort of do that for some of the tech.
Say that again?
Sorry, we already do things where we're the host district for something
Yes.
that's across the entire ESD. And so I think this is potentially something, but you're not going to solve that in a week. But I definitely agree that it's worth looking into.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Holman. I'm very pleased that we're going to be offering remote. In fact, I think it's vital that we offer remote learning next year. So, excellent. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Public and Community Affairs. Director Sage, do you have anything to report tonight?
I just wanted to mention that last Friday, the small group of East Side school board directors met with Patty Hayes and Public Health Seattle King County for Patty's last meeting when she transitions to a role at University of Washington for her new job. And we thanked her for all of her work that she's done with us this year regarding the pandemic and what we can and cannot do in schools and how we can help our students be at the ready no matter which kind of updates we were getting from the state and Department of Health. And going forward, they're going to be doing a lot of work over the summer. Siri can probably speak more to this because she also works in that arena, in that realm. But that we do plan on keeping our communication with them going and continue regular meetings as we lead into the fall so that we will have a better idea directly from public health what this pandemic now looks like in the fall and how it's going to affect our students. Mask mandate still applies. Students will be wearing masks in schools, but getting rid of some things like the attestation form is coming, and I'm sure there's going to be more even changing over the summer. Anything to add?
Anyone else have anything to add?
This meeting or something else?
The next item on the agenda is board comments. So now here's an opportunity. Does anyone have, yes, Director Stewart.
Yeah. Yesterday, several of us attended the Native American Native American education programs graduation. I'm probably getting the name wrong, but apologize. If you've never been to one of these, it is moving. It's one of the few times I've seen a program in a school that celebrates multi-generational education, if you will. My grandparents helped raise me, and so I learned how to talk with folks that were much older than my parent, and I benefited from it, I thought. And I think this program is very beneficial to those kids, and if there could be some way to expand this to other districts, I would love to see it as a model. In fact, I'd love for us to be able to present it at a national meeting to show others, because one of the parents said, I lived in South Dakota and I never saw this, and look at all, because he was a Lakota Sioux, and he said, I never saw this. And I said, well, son, I didn't see it here in Oklahoma, and you can't find much more Native American state than Oklahoma, to be quite frank. And I would have loved to have had it. The second, prior to that meeting, I attended the LTPTSA's DEI committee meeting. They actually had reached out to a lot of folks, and so there was supposed to have been much more, but the rain kind of took care of that. We're meeting in Marymore. The core people who are trying to organize that effort are really trying hard. They are trying to reach out to as many people as possible. I would really encourage anyone who wants to go through that route to do so. I think it adds strength whenever you have in numbers. It was multicultural, the four I showed up to meet with, and I think that it really is a great method of sharing and trying. The more people you have behind you, the more success you have. I've always found that, at least in legislative. Anyway, it was a great session. And but quite frankly, we went into why they started it and how hard it was to get to where they are, which is only about this far.
Any other board member comments tonight?
I would just like to say that for this week, for those of you who might not be aware, we are moving into graduation and are doing some in-person ceremonies at T-Mobile. So we are looking forward to the opportunity to celebrate our graduates and all the work that has gone in. Thank you to all the staff in making this happen, as well as to our students and families. So it will be an exciting time on Wednesday. Actually, we start Tuesday night, we do Transition Academy, and then we do Thursday and Friday, Wednesday, Thursday with our high schools. I think we have another one on Friday after that, too. So looking forward to it. So excited to have you all there.
And following up on that, T-Mobile must be at some level subsidizing our use of it. We're not paying full rate, are we?
They have a school district rate for graduations.
So thank you to them for making it available. We couldn't afford it if we were paying by the full seat, and we couldn't do it if we didn't do it there.
It's true. Although we had to promise them our best baseball players, so.
And the only other piece is I was out in the lobby before the scholarships. I was noticing the books that were sitting there for the book study that was going forward, and I was thinking that those might be something that, well, I knew I was interested in reading those as well. And so my thought was, as a board, those could also be beneficial for us all to read and have that opportunity to be able to speak to them. Could we get copies of those?
Yes.
Thanks.
I already have a copy of some, so check with us before you buy.
That would be good.
I had the opportunity to work with her Isabel, years and years ago, and she left me in the dust 25 years ago. She is the sharpest person I've ever met and a very good journalist. First of all, if you're going to read a book, it's got to be done in an interesting manner, or else you might as well just listen to a book on tape and then you'll forget it anyway. But she's a hell of a writer, so.
And so just something for future agenda item as well is just adding something along MTSS and looking towards that to sort of get an update of where we are all at and how that works.
Okay. You said MTSS. I just wanna make sure I heard you. Okay. I have two related things for the board. The first is to remind everyone that we have As part of the development of our equity policy, the board is as everyone knows, as we've been conducting ongoing training. We have the next session scheduled for a week from today, the 14th at 5 p.m., held remotely. So I just want to make sure everyone saw that on their calendar. It's not a regularly scheduled meeting, but there should be an invite that's been sent out. Yes. Director Stewart?
Yeah, I know that progress is too slow for a lot of folks, for most folks. It always is when it's very important to you. I would encourage staff to give us, to be quite frank, each meeting, even if it's small, just give us an update where we are, what we've done since the last time. And I realize in 2 weeks' time, there's not a hell of a lot you can do, but I'd like to see what we could give updates, because I think our parents want to know. I want to know, because I don't want to see us, it's a trudging process, because John, you and I discussed all the various steps that have to go to get from where we are to where that Bellevue policy was of 8 or 9 pages. And I want to know that we're making progress every week. And I think our students deserve that.
Great. And that was the second thing I was going to address, is that at our next meeting, I'm anticipating that we will have further discussion on the development of our board policy. Excuse me. Can I have my talking mask back on? Try that. That'll be better. Yeah. At our next meeting on the 28th, we will continue the discussion of the development and adoption of our board policy. As everyone knows, we've completed our most recent linkage sessions, and we have previously committed to the community that we would be adopting a policy this year. Now, the question still remains should we be is the policy ready to be adopted this year? So John and I are talking, I think we're set to talk tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and I will provide an update on what will be occurring at the next meeting to the board before then, and then that will be on the agenda.
So just to make sure that I understand, the next meeting, we will be discussing the equity policy, but we do not vote on it at the same meeting that we're discussing and finalizing.
No.
No, I don't. We're not going to be doing that, no. I mean,
Okay.
yes, okay, so theoretically, yes, the board could do that. We will not be doing that, though, no.
Okay, so you and John will let us know after you speak in the morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know. I'll just offer my 2 cents here. I still think as a board that we should be adopting something before the start of the next academic year, so that reasonable interpretations can be put together, and that the policy can be monitored and evaluated next year, and so that we can then make additional changes to the policy going forward. But I'm one board member, and we need to have that discussion. And that will likely mean adding additional, sorry, John, that will likely mean adding additional meetings over the summer.
I was about to say, although this is not the time for motion, I'd like to see us continue having meetings till we get this thing out and about and communicated to everyone.
I agree.
I mean, I want to get it right. I know we're not going to get it perfect, but I want to get it as right as we can make it, and as soon as we can make it.
Yep. Okay. Any other board? Yeah,
I
Director
just
Sage?
want to say, I don't know that we're ever going to get it right, because it should never be the same. It should always be something that we're improving on, so hopefully we adopt something this school year and improve on it as we go.
Agreed. Okay.
I am with you there. I want to see action, and even if it's imperfect, I want to see it get actionable before next school year. So.
Okay.
So to just build on that, in agreement, I also do believe that there might be some potential smaller group work in which to be able to pull that through, getting some of that, having the opportunity as a small group of board members too, with staff to be able to walk through some of those feedback and things going forward, to be able to sort of move that just a little quicker, with a little more focused work that way.
Because none of us could be at all of the meetings, I think it's vital that we have all of the notes from all of the meetings.
Agreed.
I'll be flexible enough to be as many as you need to do. If you need to do subgroups, I'll do that, because I want this done.
Okay. Any other board member comments tonight? No, okay. Okay, under the Open Public Meetings Act, in-person board meetings are permitted in compliance with regulations, but attendees must pre-register to attend. Those who wish to attend a meeting, please register on a first-come, first-served basis by emailing Diane Jenkins and doing so before 1 p.m. on the date of the meeting. Ms. Jenkins' email is djenkins@lwsd.org. The next board meeting is set for June 28 with a study session at 5 p.m. held in the boardroom and live streamed, and the board meeting to follow at 7 p.m. also in the boardroom and live streamed. I will now entertain a motion to approve to adjourn the June 7, 2021 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Bleasner and seconded by Director Carlson that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.